Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of the London hammer, a tool found in 110-million-year-old rock. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. In 1936, near London, Texas, a couple named Max and Emma Hahn discovered a small protrusion of wood sticking out from a rock outcrop along Red Creek. When they returned 10 years later and broke the rock open, they found a metal hammerhead inside, an iron hammer with a wooden handle embedded in rock that some researchers claimed was over 100 million years old. If the age of the rock was accurate, the London hammer would be the most extraordinary out-of-place artifact ever found, proof of an advanced civilization existing millions of years before humans evolved. The London hammer is now on display at the Creation Evidence Museum in Glen Rose, Texas, where it is presented as evidence against the geological column and in support of Young Earth Creationism. The scientific community has a different assessment. The story of how the London hammer's rock formed and what that tells us about how out-of-place artifacts should be evaluated is genuinely instructive. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the wider world of ancient technological anomalies, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. The official story of technological progress follows a reassuring arc: stone to LS giving way to bronze, bronze to iron, iron to steel, and finally the Industrial Revolution catapulting humanity into the modern age. In this narrative, each generation inherits a slightly more sophisticated toolkit than the last, and no knowledge is ever truly lost. It is a comfortable story. It is also, in key respects, demonstrably false. History is littered with technological achievements that appeared centuries before their supposed invention, vanished after the cultures that created them collapsed, and were reinvented, often with great difficulty, by later civilizations who had no idea the knowledge had ever existed. Roman concrete was stronger and more durable than most modern concrete, and was not matched again until the 21st century. Greek fire, the incendiary weapon that protected the Byzantine Empire for centuries, has never been fully reproduced. Damascus steel, capable of holding an edge that modern metallurgists struggle to replicate, disappeared with the craftsmen who made it. These are not myths. They are documented historical losses of genuine technical knowledge. When we encounter an object from the ancient world that should not exist, a battery from Baghdad dated to the Parthian era, a computing mechanism salvaged from an ancient shipwreck, a map showing geographical features that were not officially discovered for another millennium, the temptation is to dismiss it as misidentified or misstated. That dismissal is sometimes warranted. But when such objects accumulate, when the pattern becomes too consistent to ignore, the honest response is to ask whether our model of ancient capability is simply wrong. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter, the core evidence surrounding the London hammer. A tool found in 110-million-year-old rock is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. The London hammer consists of an iron head approximately 15 centimeters long and a wooden handle approximately 9 centimeters long, embedded in a nodule of concretionary sandstone. The hammer was acquired by George Hahn, who eventually sold it to Carl Bohr, director of the Creation Evidence Museum. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes, but as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the rock nodule in which the hammer was embedded is a calcareous concretion, a common geological formation that occurs when mineral-rich groundwater percolates through sediments and deposits calcium carbonate around a nucleating object. This process can produce rock-hard nodules around modern objects within decades to centuries, not millions of years. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this. And that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. The rock outcrop from which the hammer was reportedly extracted is Cretaceous era sandstone, approximately 110 to 115 million years old. However, the concretion in which the hammer was found is not 110 million-year-old rock. It is a concretion that formed much more recently around the hammer, embedded in or adjacent to the Cretaceous outcrop. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, metallurgical analysis of the hammer has been conducted, with results showing that it is an ordinary iron hammer of 19th century manufacture. The metal composition, hammer design, and construction are all consistent with tools made in the 1800s, the period when the area was settled, and mining and smithing were common activities. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of the original find site has never been excavated or documented by a qualified geologist. The exact stratigraphic relationship between the hammer concretion and the surrounding rock has not been professionally documented. The claim that the hammer was found embedded in 110 million-year-old rock rests entirely on the Hahn family's recollection. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding: concretion formation around metal objects is well documented. In the 19th century, when iron tools and nails were common throughout the Texas Hill Country, dropped or discarded metal objects routinely became encrusted in calcareous concretions in the local geology. This process requires no extraordinary age. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations. And in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the London hammer, a tool found in 110 million-year-old rock. This is where the debate becomes most intense. because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that the London hammer is a 19th-century iron hammer that was dropped or abandoned near a mineral spring outcrop and subsequently encrusted in a calcareous concretion that formed around it in the decades following. The concretion was later found adjacent to or partially embedded in Cretaceous sandstone, creating the false impression that the hammer was encased in ancient rock. This is the geological consensus. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the London hammer is an authentic out-of-place artifact, demonstrating that advanced metalworking existed in the Cretaceous period, which would require rejecting both the geological timeline and the evolutionary record. This interpretation is accepted only by young Earth creationists. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that the London hammer's true origin and stratigraphic context cannot be determined because it was removed from its find site without professional documentation, making definitive geological assessment impossible. This agnostic position acknowledges the evidentiary gap without accepting either the creationist or the orthodox geological interpretation uncritically. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the London hammer, a tool found in 110-million-year-old rock, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes metallurgical analysis of the hammerhead shows composition and manufacture consistent with 19th-century ironworking, not with any technological capability claimed for Cretaceous-era humans. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented the hammer design is consistent with common 19th-century mining or carpentry hammers manufactured in the American South, with no features that would distinguish it from known historical tools. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed documented examples of calcareous concretions forming around modern objects in the Texas Hill Country. Geology within decades confirmed that the rock casing of the London Hammer does not constitute evidence of geological antiquity. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the London Hammer, a tool found in 110-million-year-old rock. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. The London Hammer is displayed in the Creation Evidence Museum as evidence against mainstream geology, though geologists who have examined it do not find it problematic for the geological timeline. The hammer illustrates a methodological principle that all archaeological finds should be subject to: the need for professional documentation of find context before any interpretation is possible. An artifact removed from its geological context without documentation cannot be reliably interpreted, regardless of what it appears to show. The London Hammer's mystery is not geological, it is methodological. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the London Hammer, a tool found in 110-million-year-old rock, from the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of London Hammer ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.